This is the story of how Eleanor Roosevelt made the Universal Declaration of Human Rights come to life and how many countries around the world came together to agree on a set of inalienable rights. The year was 1945 and the Second World War had just ended. The world was rebuilding after one of the deadliest wars in its history, and the United States wanted to begin making friends with nations around the world. President Franklin D. Roosevelt started the idea of the United Nations group shortly after the war ended, in an effort to keep peace throughout the world. On October 24, 1945, 51 nations gathered in San Francisco to put forth an effort to form the United Nations. When the charter had been ratified by China, France, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, the United States, and a majority of other signatories, a charter was passed to form the organization known today as the United Nations. The United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights on December 10, 1948. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was established because of the experiences of the preceding world wars. The Universal Declaration was the first time that countries agreed on a comprehensive statement of inalienable rights. This was due, largely in part, to Eleanor Roosevelt. President Harry Truman had asked Eleanor Roosevelt to become a chairwoman of the United Nations. At first, Eleanor didn't think she was qualified for the job, but when she kept thinking about it, she became more driven to join the delegation, as it would support her mission in helping people around the world.
This is a good document, even a great document, and we propose to give it our full support.
When Eleanor Roosevelt was 15, she was enrolled at Allenswood, a girls' boarding school where she met French headmistress Marie Souvestre, who really sparked Eleanor's interest for travel. Eleanor got her joy from volunteer work as given to her by her parents, who devoted lots of their time to the community around them. When she helped in World War I with the Red Cross, she was very happy to jump back into her work that she loved so much. She wrote a letter saying, "I loved it. I simply ate it up." Eleanor Roosevelt has always had a strong passion for helping people, even from the start. Due to President FDR's polio, he was limited to the amount of travel he could do, so Eleanor became his legs. She would go out and travel the world, meeting with groups of people from all walks of life. These world travels ignited a passion and love for people that would last a lifetime, and lead her to many other humanitarian ventures in the future. Eleanor helped during World War II, where she wanted to help keep people's fears and worries to a minimum. She encouraged women and young people to get involved with the war effort in whatever way they were able. The United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights on December 10, 1948, in the midst of an ever-escalating Cold War. Many people helped out with this remarkable achievement, but most people believe that the UN Commission on Human Rights, who drafted the delegation, would not have been successful in reaching that agreement without the leadership of the Commission's chair, Eleanor Roosevelt. The National Declaration of Human Rights was important because World War II had recently ended and the US had worked really hard to gain the peace that they had achieved and wanted to maintain it as the Cold War began around the same time. The Cold War is defined as the open yet restricted rivalry that developed after World War II between the United States, the Soviet Union, and their respective allies. The Cold War was waged on political, economic, and ideological fronts, eventually using scientific fields in the arms race as a way to show off the productive power of all three. The relationship was first defined by George Orwell in an article published in 1945 to refer to what he predicted would be a nuclear stalemate between 2 or 3 monstrous superstates, each possessing a weapon by which millions of people can be wiped out in a few seconds. Eleanor Roosevelt had many responsibilities during the Cold War. She was the delegate to the United Nations, syndicated columnist, human rights activist, and Democratic Party leader. Regardless of the arena in which she operated, Eleanor Roosevelt worked hard to keep the focus on what democracy represented rather than how communism threatened it. She thought that the nation had gained little from spending time and energy hating the Soviet Union and urged Americans to recognize that making democracy work at home was often more effective than extreme foreign policy. As the chair of the United Nations Human Rights Commission, Eleanor Roosevelt was the driving force in creating the 1948 Charter of Liberties, which will forever be her legacy, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In 1946, Eleanor was appointed as a delegate to the United Nations and was head of the Human Rights Commission. She was instrumental in formulating the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which she submitted to the United Nations General Assembly with these words: "We stand today at the threshold of greatness, event both in the life of the United Nations and in the life of mankind. This declaration may well become the national Magna Carta for men everywhere." Called the First Lady of the World by President Truman for her lifelong humanitarian achievements, Roosevelt worked to the end of her life to gain acceptance and implementation of the rights set forth in the Declaration.
On Human Rights Day, ever since the Declaration of Human Rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, was passed in Paris in 1948 on December the 10th, we have fostered the observance of this day not only in the United States but throughout the world. The object is to make people everywhere conscious of the importance of human rights and freedoms. The reason for that is that these are spoken of and emphasized in the Charter of the United Nations, and the Declaration was written to elaborate the rights already mentioned in the Charter, and to emphasize also for all of us the fact that the building of human rights would be one of the foundation stones on which we would build in the world an atmosphere in which peace could grow.
The legacy of her work appears in the constitutions of many nations and in an evolving body of international law that now protects the rights of men, women, and children across the world.